my wife bought 3 ducks. We already had all of these chickens and she wanted some ducks. We just bought 3 at the Farm and Supply store, and we got 2 runner ducks, and then that's just like normal white duck. They're really cool. I named them Huey, Dewey, and Lou Bega. We already had a dog named Louie, so we needed something else. But I love watching them. I watch them all the time, actually. They're hilarious and they make a lot of noise, quacking all the time. They're always into something, and I've noticed they're always moving. But usually, actually, hardly ever does their moving have any purpose. This summer, as I've been talking and preaching about wandering, these ducks have been an inspiration to me. I've noticed that they wander with a lot of purposelessness, but there's always a reason for the wandering. All right, just hear me out here. They are either wandering away from something, like we've got this big rooster and he chases them all the time, or they're wandering in something. We have a creek. They love to play in the creek next to our house. Or what I really hate is they get into our garden and flower bed and they wander all around in my flower bed. Or they're wandering after something. When the cicadas were really bad, man, they loved eating those cicadas, and they chased them all over, and they would wander after those cicadas. And I was thinking about that as we're talking about wandering this summer. Isn't that a reality to our wandering as well? We're always wandering from something. We're always wandering in something or somewhere, and we're always wandering after something. The next 6-7 weeks, something like that, we're going to talk about the different aspects of wandering, what we've wandered from, what we wander in, and what we wander after. And in each of those, we're going to talk kind of practically about how God calls us out of that wandering. I want to start with wandering away from. Jesus's brother James writes a letter to the churches, and it's interesting how he ends the letter that we call James. We refer to it as just James. And he ends it, Paul always is like, greet so-and-so, tell so-and-so hi. But James ends it this way, and I think it's good for us to hear today. My brothers, James 5:19, my brothers, if anyone among you wanders from the truth and someone brings him back, let him know that whoever brings back a sinner from his wandering will save his soul from death and will cover a multitude of sins. So he starts with this: if anyone among you wanders from the truth. I think we wander from the truth, even as Christ professing followers of God. We still inadvertently at times wander from the truth. Here's how we do this, I think, in our culture and our world today. There's 2 ways of thinking about truth. There's a lot of ways of thinking about truth, but there's 2 ways of thinking about truth. There's subjective truth and there's objective truth. Subjective is what means to me, right? Like varying opinions, and there's truth to that. And then there's objective truth, which means no matter where you come from or what perspective you have, this is reality regardless. So let me, as we continue hiking, I'll give you an example of this. I am out at Green Rock Trail today at Greensfelder Park, here on the west side of St. Louis in Wildwood, where our church is at, actually. And I love this trail. It's not the prettiest trail in this park. There's a couple of other ones that are prettier, but it is the longest. And I'm at the very tail end of it, and it's not maintained as well. And this is my favorite chunk of it. Actually, I want to say this. This is truth. This is the best trail in all of Greensfelder Park. This one right here. Okay, that's subjective truth. I think that this is the best trail in all of Greensfelder Park. That's a subjective truth statement. Now, my claim for that, you could argue with it, against it. You could say that's not true, right? And have your own opinion of it. As you see the creek beside, dry creek running through, creek bed running through here. It's pretty. A month ago, it had a lot of water in it, and there's all these down trees all over it. But to say that Green Rock Trail is in Greensfelder Park is an objective truth statement. So the subjective is me saying this is my absolute favorite and this is what I believe to be true. The objective statement is saying this is a real trail in a real park. That's an objective truth statement. Here's what we've done with religion in our country and in our world today. We have moved our claims of following Jesus from an objective truth claim that we as followers of Jesus are making to a subjective truth claim. How have we done that? Well, many of us as Christians have done that. And we've turned Jesus's truth and his reality affirmed in the resurrection from the grave. We've turned that into a kind of helpful resource for me in my life. That's one way. So we make these claims like this, is Jesus is the good way that I've chosen, and you should try him out too. His way's awesome. Give him a whirl. Or we do this. We tie our following of Jesus to an emotional high that we receive at worship or other things. And so we say, like in the old song, you ask me how I know Jesus lives. He lives where? Within my heart. My following of Jesus spurs certain emotions. And so because of that, I know it's true. And so we make these claims in a world that is now searching and longing for objective truth. We now have moved in our own faith journey, and be honest with yourself about this. How often have you found in your own faith journey you are wandering from church to church, movement to movement, book to book, conference to conference, great preacher to great preacher? You're moving from all of these different things that pull at your emotions because you have based your following of Jesus in subjective truth rather than objective reality. James says, I love it. He says, anyone who has wandered from not a truth, not my truth, anyone who has wandered from the truth. Now, that's not his first statement about truth in his letter. Actually, if you turn to the first chapter of James, you get this statement about truth. Don't be deceived, my dear brothers. Every good gift and every perfect gift comes from above, coming down from the Father of lights. So the one who bore and created lights, the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. God is not a subjective reality. God is the Father of light. He is the one who has created truth and bore it in reality. I chose this spot. One of them is because of the shadows. You see that? God has no shadows on him. He doesn't change or move based on the mood of a culture, a time, or a space. And the sun never casts a shadow on him. He is the Father of lights. And he says, of his own will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creation. In other words, God says this: Jesus isn't just a way or a possibility. God's reality is not just good for me and might not be as good for others. This is the claim that James is making. God created all people. He is the bearer of light, of truth itself. He knows best the truth for your life.